Hey guys, back with another thread idea. I know this one isn't really any new to the VC. I know that Ron Haggerty's done this one before, but I just decided to do my own version of it, and I'm gonna do top 10 great sophomore albums by metal bands. Now there was quite a few that I could have picked that may have been. Yes, some people think they're metal. Yes, some people don't think they're metal. They're kind of, you got your Def Leppards and your Rats and your Stripers and bands kind of in that 80s area of what the media wanted to consider metal and what, diehard metal has don't consider to be metal. But I picked 10 that I'm pretty sure everybody can agree with are metal bands. So these are in no particular order, although probably the first one might be number one, but I just kind of grabbed them and then shuffled them, and we'll see how this all goes. So the first one I picked, I actually think their debut is better than this, even though it's not a bad album. I just think the debut is better, and that is Killers by Iron Maiden, released in 1981. I like the first one better just simply because you don't have the kind of little instrumental and acoustic type things kind of in between songs that I don't really think kind of fit. I think like March of Ides, I think, kind of fits in because it starts off one of the songs. But other than that, I just don't, I'm not really particularly, I don't care for like instrumentals, especially when they're like a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. I feel it's just more like an intro, and maybe just should have been included in that song. But Iron Maiden Killers, that's number one of the list. Not necessarily number one overall, but it probably could be. So the second one is miles ahead of their second record. And it's my favorite record by this band, and that's Megadeth's Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? It released in 1986. I know there's complaints. Some people would prefer Rust in Peace over this one just because of the cover of I Ain't Superstitious. I happen to like that cover. I think they really kind of made it their own. And for the longest time, I didn't even realize it was a cover until I happened to be looking at the lyric sheet and saw it wasn't written by Dave Mustaine. So, I think they really, really kind of made that their own. I think they really, the production's a lot better, which usually is going to happen with your second record if you're doing well enough off the first. I think the songwriting is better. I think the lyrics are better. Just overall, it's a better record, and that's why I think it's my favorite Megadeth album. Next up, number 3 is, I think pretty much everybody considers this to be the best, at least of the first two. And I'm talking about Diary of a Madman by Ozzy. Also, this one was released in 1981, recorded at the same time Blizzard of Oz was. But I think that even though they were recorded kind of at the same time, I do still feel a totally different feel to this record than the other one. I just think, again, I think Randy outdoes himself on this album. And that's no slight to the first one. He did a really good job on that one too. But I think just Randy in general just makes this album better than the first one. Next one is not the second release, but the second full-length release, which is what we're kind of counting here. And so it's going to be Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath, 1984. I prefer the first official full-length release, Melissa, to this one, but just by a little bit. I mean, they're both great records, but I like the more raw kind of sound that Melissa had, just a little bit more. But this is still, like I said, it's a great sophomore effort, so it's not shabby. I prefer the first one to this one, though. So this is the only band. This is the only record I own by this band, and it just happens to be their sophomore record, and it is The Rods, Wild Dogs. I don't have anything. I have listened to some of their other stuff. I just don't have anything other than this one. So, being in my collection, it's the only one I would probably say it's my favorite one. of the only one. Next up, this is more than likely my favorite from this band. Is definitely better than the first one. It's really hard to pick a favorite Motorhead record, but I'd bring out Overkill, which I believe was originally released in what it says 1970. Yeah, I think they did 2 records in '79. I think they did this one in Bomber. I think came out in '79. But compared to the debut, which the debut is good, but I think there's just a lot more. It became more of a metal sound for them than it was hard rock. Next, I think we're going to add once again to the classic side of things, staying in the 70s with Black Sabbath's Paranoid. And for the longest time, this is also a 71 release. For the longest time, I really liked the first one more than this one, but I think the more I got to listen to this one, I really started liking this one better. I think Planet Caravan was probably what I would call the weak link on this record, but I mean, you got Hand of Doom, Electric Funeral, Fairies Wear Boots, War Pigs. Paranoid's kind of cliche, everybody knows the song, but it's not a bad song. But here we go. So Ozzy gets 2 in this one. We got 3 left, and so I guess this makes number 8. Overkill, Taking Over. I have listened to every Overkill album lots and lots of times. Probably nowhere near as close as Ron Haggerty has. But this is a great second record. I don't really think between the first 2, I don't know if I would really pick one or the other to be my favorite. My favorite overall Overkill album is Necroshine, which is the first one I ever heard. I just really love the kind of the thump and the groove to that record. But stellar album. Oh, and just for a second, to go back to the Overkill record, I don't know if anybody else has this reissue, but this thing is freaking thick. When I first played it the other day, I thought maybe there was 2 records stuck together. I mean, this thing is thick. I don't know if you can really tell how thick this thing is, but if anybody else has one of these, let me know if yours had that same feel to it. I was very gentle to make sure if it wasn't too that I wasn't going to tear it apart. I think the second full-length album I heard from this band, and it's my second favorite by this band, definitely blows, I think, the first one away. 1984, Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Their songwriting skills were just so much better. And people can complain about Mustaine wrote this, Mustaine wrote that. Well, let's just take into consideration they had 18 songs on the first record. 17 if you don't really want to count Anesthesia. Okay, if he supposedly was on 6 of these songs, that's not even half the stuff. So Mustaine wrote them all. I don't want to hear it. He probably contributed like a riff or a melody or something to it. But this record's just great. Call of Cthulhu, one of the best Metallica instrumental songs, or just metal instrumental songs in general. All right, this last one is also the only one I own from this band. I've listened to 2 or 3 of them, and it's Malice, License to Kill, which was 1987. They've got a mix of like an Armored Saint kind of Judas Priest sound. I wouldn't consider them to be thrash or anything like that. They're just like a classic, kind of borrowed from the new wave of British heavy metal a little bit, and they were one of those bands that was kind of in the middle of that first 80s wave of American metal. Really great singer, great songs overall. So those are the 10 that I selected, just because those are the 10 I have. I mean, there's plenty others that we could argue should be among 10 of the greatest metal sophomore albums. I just don't have those. So anyway, that's my 10. Hope that maybe you piggyback on it. Hope you enjoyed the video. God bless.